I'm Remington Andy Campbell, and this is the History of Musical Theatre interview show. Here's my guest today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Chima Olujie, founder of Horton Technique Australia, just a regular dancer based in Sydney now, and we love all things dance.
Yeah, and you can do really cool, like tilts, the like Horton tilts. They're
Love
cool.
a lateral T, yeah, lateral T's every day, most days of the
They
week.
look
Yeah,
hard.
well, they're hard, but they're fun, lots of fun. Still learning to this day, of course.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So what's your background?
Dance background
Yeah, yeah.
or
What's your dance background?
Well, I started dancing when I was a very small girl. My mum put me into class when I was about 3 years old.
Oh, cute.
Um, Started with ballet, jazz, gymnastics, all of that kind of stuff. I danced all the way through school and then obviously wanted to pursue it as a career and went to university to study. I did a Bachelor of Fine Arts and then headed to America to continue at the Ailey School before coming back to Australia, and then kind of just settling in Sydney. And then now I'm kind of just teaching and performing in like a few, mostly in the pre-professional division. I really love to encourage. The next generation of dancers. So, I'm getting a little bit old now,
Yeah.
but still performing and still enjoying that process of teaching and sharing everything that I've learned, because it's time for the next gen.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, having teachers who are really passionate about teaching is always really nice. You hear horror stories about teachers who really wanted to be are really sad that they're not the one doing it. Um,
No, I think I've been pretty blessed with the kind of opportunity to have that performance experience in companies and with as an individual artist, and seeing also the different how the industries work in different countries. And
yeah,
sometimes it feels like we're quite removed all the way down under sometimes. So it's really nice for me to be able to give access to students who may not be able to travel overseas and study,
yeah,
um, give them that access to like that little push, that they might not get elsewhere here. So
yeah.
yeah.
So, what would you say are the big differences between the American contemporary dance scene and the Australian contemporary dance scene?
The first thing I would probably say is the volume of work.
What do
The
you mean our
volume.
one company isn't?
One, we can count on one hand or maybe one finger here. And it's quite beautiful. There are so many independent artists in Australia that
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to work with or to teach there, and they're kind of going ahead and starting their own thing, which is beautiful to watch.
Mm.
But yeah, that's probably one of the main differences is the volume of work and the
Yeah.
volume of opportunity to either study or just even to take class on a daily basis. In the
It's so
States, you can
true.
take class Monday through Sunday. There is something every day. And here's, you have to kind of do a little bit of research as to where you can take
Yeah.
class on a daily
Yeah.
basis. That's outside of your school, or if you're not dancing full time, or you've graduated and you're looking to keep up your training. It's a little bit tougher here, but
Yeah.
I suppose the Zoom world has opened up that opportunity a little bit more now.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely has. I've recently just joined up with Broche Ballet, so I am doing class 5 days a week. So that's been nice.
Yeah, it's great. That's beautiful.
But yeah, definitely. You'd think of something in Sydney, like Sydney Dance Company, as being like, oh, it's our equivalent of Steps or Broadway Dance Center, but it's really not the
Not
same. Not quite the same. You have these places that they're like, oh yeah, we just have like 30 classes running every day, and you're like, oh cool, cool,
Yeah,
that's a lot.
and you can really find class like in New York City. You can find class, whatever type of class. One day you might do ballet, one day you might do West African, one day you might do Bollywood, one day you might do samba. Like you can find something every day,
Yeah.
which is beautiful. So yes, that's probably one of the main differences I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was it that drew you to the Ailey School?
Uh, I grew up in a very kind of small, coasty, surfy town, and I suppose my brother and I were the only kind of ethnic-looking kids there, and I never kind of felt like I fit in the
Yeah.
dance scene or in society for that matter very early on, and I saw Alvin Ailey's Revelations on YouTube or
Yeah.
something back then, whatever we had back then. It's a while ago. Um, and while I was in school, and I just said to my mum, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. I think I was about 15 or 16 years old. And I said, they look like me. They look muscly and like they're strong and they're really powerful and they look like me and they look like me and I really want to go there. So that kind of that kind of just like pushed me to to get my ass there
Yeah.
eventually.
I mean,
But
it's a big trip.
yeah, and obviously at 16 years old, you're not ready for anything yet. But that was kind of the thing. I never had a ballet body or a jazz body or a this body or that
Yeah.
body. And when I saw them kind of dancing in that way, I was like, I want to do that. I'm going to do that. So,
Yeah.
um, and then after after kind of that schooling, I went up to the HSC, did dance all the way through, and did competitions and things with the school, and then uh, up to that university level, and then I was introduced to Horton Technique there. So that was
Yeah.
like a
At
long
the
time
Ailey
ago.
School?
No,
No, at
actually,
university.
at university, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Where did you study?
I studied first at the University of New South Wales and then graduated at the BCA in Melbourne.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
A friend of
So
mine
I
just graduated
started,
from musical theatre there.
yeah, amazing program. So um, I think that kind of just after I met Veronica Combs here, she was from Atlanta, and she I think was the dance captain of Lion King or something at the time in the States, and she
Wow.
was she was my first Horton teacher in Australia. Yeah. So that was like many moons ago. It's about 13 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the most recent scripted episode of the podcast, Lester Horton is one of the people who we very, very briefly meet in some of his Hollywood work. Do you know much about his background?
I do a little bit. Not so much about his Hollywood
Well,
work.
that's all I know. All I know is like what he did with Joan Bailey, who was like a studio dancer who danced a tiny bit with Balanchine and then gets married in an adorable turn of events next episode.
Amazing. Amazing. But he is such a versatile creature, like Lester Horton.
Yeah.
He's just an incredible human. The way that he spread himself across film and theater and concert dance and all of that stuff, and then still to this day, and it's a shame that he passed away before us. People even knew who he was and that kind of thing. But yeah, let's talk Lester Horton and plus Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at from what I've seen of Horton Technique and what I've seen of like Golden Age Hollywood, there's not a lot of crossover.
No, not
They don't
quite.
seem very similar. So I was quite shocked when I was like, he was choreographing for these films. And one of the
Yeah,
only people who gave a daily class for studio dancers, I think actually one of his assistants or students gave it, but he took the class every day.
yes, it was it. I'm gonna put my money on that it was Bella Lewitsky
It
because
was, it was.
um,
I couldn't think of the name off the top of my head, but it was her.
yeah, she was kind of the one that made him kind of get himself together and really like codify and be like because a lot of his work was experimental.
Yeah.
He didn't have same kind of thing. He didn't have a particular body type that was made for a dance, And he kind of used his dancers as to experiment with movement. And she and Bella was she was the girl. She could do everything. So I think he used her quite a lot to kind of yeah, get himself together basically, and to take class and to teach class and to kind of make him stay away from too much pageantry and extra stuff and really like hone in on what he was trying to do.
Yeah. It's interesting you say he would experiment on other people because on Joan Bailey recounts that her um, she would he'd give her some choreography and be like, "Can you do that on point?"
Yeah.
Because I've never worn point shoes. Can you do that in point shoes? And she's like, looks like I can. Awesome.
Yeah, so and that's pretty much how he's developed his entire technique is seeing what is actually possible with the body. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is also fascinating the number of new techniques that have come out of um, I don't want to say unconventional, but unconventional body types that someone like Bob Fosse was kind of pigeon-toed, and that shows through in his choreography, or that Martha Graham's technique is very much built for female bodies in a way that other techniques aren't. Apparently, it's really hard for guys to do.
Oh yes, those contractions, girl, they're no joke.
I mean, they look hard anyway, but I'm like, that would hurt my abs.
Yeah, yeah, but it is, and that was kind of the time. Like, I suppose a lot of people were gravitate with regard to modern dance. I have to
Yeah,
say that it was more. Everyone was gravitating towards the New York side, and everyone thought that modern dance kind of just only started in New York and it stayed there, and that's where it's always been. But
yeah,
Lester Horton was in Los Angeles. He was in he was in La La Land. He was in Hollywood, and creating this technique that eventually went to the East Coast as well. But um, yeah, it's amazing the development of other techniques and Fosse and Graham and all of that stuff that
yeah.
have come out of, yes, I would say unconventional bodies.
Yeah, Agnes DeMille as well. A lot of her choreography is. She said something along the lines of like, "Oh, I wish I could choreograph Balanchine ballets like no story. It's just all lines." She's like, "I just can't. I can't
Yeah,
choreograph them and I can't dance them. So I've got my story works.
kinds of the work. Yeah, that's right.
This is the skill set I've got." So
Yeah, that's pretty much right. That's pretty much it.
yeah. So what? Could you tell me a little bit about Lester Horton's work in concert dance and in contemporary dance? What did?
So basically, I want to give you a little bit of extra background because
Yeah.
he also had quite an unconventional start to dance. He didn't, his first experience of dance was not a formal class. He didn't
Yeah.
have formal dance training straight away. He actually went to watch a pantomime. He's from Indianapolis. And he went to watch an American Indian pantomime, and he
Yeah.
was obsessed with uh, like all cultural and ritual dances
Yeah.
and music and things like that. And so he kind of like stemmed from that, and then eventually enrolled into ballet classes, art classes, and theater and all of that kind of stuff. Um, and then kind of he was introduced to that formal training and that formal style of dance or
Yeah.
concert dance as well. So, and he performed in, what was that? What was that? It was a small theater. It was one of his first performances that ended up going on a tour around like Indianapolis or a few states around there. And he got rave reviews and things like that. And then he eventually was able to start his own classes and things
Yeah.
like that. And then so he's probably, I would say, one of his most famous concert dancers was Salome.
Okay.
Have you heard of Salome?
I mean
Um,
I know the story.
the story, yeah, but
Yeah.
based on the traditional story of Salome, that's probably one of his most famous early concert dancers.
Yeah.
And that kind of same kind of thing though. It still stayed in this like on this LA side
Yeah.
and didn't really spread around too much. And then he was working at the same time he was doing concert dance, he was doing film and theater, and he would make his dancers sew and paint and do all the props and do all the production side of everything as well as dancing because
Oh.
obviously they weren't funded
I mean, if you
greatly.
have no money, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, but he was so experienced with all of that kind of stuff because he just had such a keen interest in all artistic things from such a young age,
Yeah.
you know. So, yeah, um, and then yeah, I don't really know much about his Hollywood life, though I have to say.
He worked as a choreographer for a time. Um, I I don't know a ton because he was sort of someone who came has come in quite briefly into the story, but he choreographed for some of the movie musicals that were happening.
Yeah, amazing.
He
That's he's just always had that versatility, I think, to
yeah.
be able to go across both worlds as well. Yeah.
What what are the main like features of Horton dance, of Horton technique? How would one know that that was what they were watching?
You would, from the influence of all those cultural dances, there are certain things that kind of are signature Horton things. For
Yeah.
example, lateral T, and these are kind of the codified names. They were definitely not called that back then. And I think who was trying to? I think it was Jimmy Truitt or James Truitt was had learnt lava notation by then and was
Yeah.
trying to codify things like that. So and the whole idea of creating this technique was to make it a corrective technique. So
Yeah.
we work in parallel, we work in turnout, we work in parallel and turnout at the same time.
Yeah.
It's all like alignment focus with stylistic quality. So if you saw a lateral T or a flat back or some of the shapings of the arms, they have all different kind of dynamic qualities or stylistic qualities, and you'd be able to see, oh, that's definitely Horton technique. Probably the most signature thing is a lateral T,
They're
yeah,
very cool.
or a low T or one of those tilts that everyone thinks they are. But there's also the flatback series that we know today, or one of the versions that we know, um, and how that kind of stemmed into a jazz warm up, and no one would really know that that's come from Horton technique.
I mean,
They just
I have done. You bend to the side and then you flip over and you do a flat back, and I totally wouldn't have known that that was a Horton technique thing. I would have told you
yeah,
that was jazz.
yeah, yeah. So it's really interesting when I'm like, this is actually from Horton technique. They're like, what do you mean? And even all the isolation work, and because it wasn't he had that influence from American Indian, Caribbean, Afro-Cuban, Indonesian, Javanese dance. So there's even like finger articulations that are really quite signature and really beautiful to the technique as well.
Wow, that's that's so interesting. I have more and more got this theory that jazz dance isn't real. Like jazz technique isn't real. There's like 30 different versions of it.
Yeah.
And
Jazz
I'm
is
like,
very broad. It's
yeah,
very
what the
broad.
Rockettes do and what like the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders and what Fosse does. Like it's not the same thing.
Very broad, very broad. But it's the same as the contemporary umbrella, I have to
Yeah.
say. And that kind of fine line between what is modern and what is contemporary. And, I really try, um, I think I really identify myself as a modern dancer. I don't,
Yeah.
and before I was like, I do contemporary. And then I was like, actually, I'm really truly from the heart a modern dancer. I live and breathe it and love it. So there's,
So what's the difference there? Because I couldn't tell you.
you know what I would say it comes with this crossover of the era, like
Yeah.
what happened between Graham and say who else could I give you an example of? It's more of a timing thing. I would say
Yeah.
the contemporary thing comes a little bit later after all. Um, all this, I would say from Graham to Trisha Brown, there's like a big
Okay.
kind of gap between there that really, as an example of what is modern and what is contemporary, I think like some that's a prime example. But um, it would be across the timeline of how dance and movement developed, and
Yeah.
everyone kind of started to get rid of that very strict and codified version of technique and started to
Yeah.
release everything and roll on the floor and and really like just kind of to let go. And that for me that's kind of was the birth of contemporary. What is
Yeah.
contemporary? But the umbrella is still humongous for contemporary, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was asked maybe a week ago by someone. I was like in a class and we were talking about taking lyrical next week, and someone was like, "What's the difference between lyrical and contemporary?" And I was like, "I
But there's
don't,
also lyrical contemporary.
I don't know."
There's jazz. There's lyrical this. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
person teaching the class felt like it vibed more lyrical. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's really hard. And I really think it's important to, especially with the younger generation, like for them to actually learn where their dances come from, because a lot of them don't know, and
Yeah,
they see the name of the class, they go to the class and they think that's what it is and that's all that it is. But I
yeah,
think it's really important to have those discussions, and yeah, that dance history I think is just lacking a tad over here.
yeah, yeah.
Or
And
for,
I
yeah.
started dancing as I think I took my first dance class at 14.
Wow.
Yeah, so I started dancing really late and then like taking it quite seriously just in the last couple of years, like from 19. So
Amazing.
I've come to this quite late, but I found that learning the history helps me pick up choreography faster
Right.
because so few things are just one thing.
Correct.
So I had to learn some choreography and there were some tap steps in there and knowing, oh, okay, so that's kind of that's the tap bit of it. You go, okay, well I'm just tapping for 8 counts and now I'm back into a more it was more jazz but with some ballroom type of thing
Oh,
that number. But
see, that's what I mean. You're able to identify within a phrase of movement maybe where those things have come from. And
yeah.
yeah, that's great. That's amazing.
Yeah. So on the contemporary modern continuum thing, I want to ask you about some choreographers who aren't your specific area, but we also meet in these episodes. So and tell me a little bit about them, what you think. Throw out some controversial opinions if you want. Like say someone sucks if that's what you think. Well, yeah, just where they sit, how you describe their kind of movement. Um,
Yeah.
let's go really early. Isadora Duncan.
Oh, she's just beautiful. Come on. It's like let's all just float around and be beautiful fairies and experiment with color and feel. I think she was great. I'm not gonna lie. She's
Fair.
the example of a free spirit. That's what I would say about Isadora.
Wouldn't want her as a mother, but
Probably not.
she was known for abandoning her children various places.
Well, she was probably outside with some fabric and,
Yeah,
just
just
being in a field and, that kind. She's a fairy.
yeah.
Beautiful fairy.
Isadora Duncan is just how children dance if you give them like a bit of fabric.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
But
like,
love
here
her.
you go, and they're like, whoa.
Love her. Great.
So, moving forward a little bit, like Martha Graham,
Oh, I'm a fan.
you're a fan.
Look, modern dance is drama to me.
Yeah,
Everything modern is dramatic. There is some kind of drama in the way you look, the way you stand, the way you walk, the way you talk, everything. There's drama. So I adore Martha Graham for the drama.
Yeah.
And also, just for the pure physicality of the technique, we studied Graham as well
Yeah.
at Ailey, but I had Horton as my elective. But everyone must do Graham. And I have to say, three brilliant Graham teachers, one here and the rest overseas. And the pure physicality of that technique is just, you go to another place, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
love her. Fan of the drama. She needed to retire a little bit earlier, I think, just get off stage, like let the dancers dance, but she insisted on being on stage. When it was her last performance, she was like, 80s or something and still hobbling
Yeah,
on
I was
stage.
gonna say 75, and I think she said that she should have retired 5 years earlier, was her opinion.
Oh, around 70. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good retirement age for a dancer, is what I've
Yeah,
learned.
yeah. But, props to her. She loves the stage so much that she just had to be on it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it would be hard to be like, so I've invented a dance technique and I love performing it. Okay, all done.
Your turn. Yeah. But great. Love her for the drama, for sure.
Yeah, and then one of her pupils, you got Merce Cunningham.
Oh, I did do Cunningham at uni. I
Yeah.
still confuses me to this day.
It's very
You know,
parallel.
very parallel. And there was this one exercise we always used to do on releve, and it was like you're in releve on first, and you would have to move your rib cage. I don't know. It's more like, what is it?
Yeah.
It's an extension of Graham, but I'm like, what are we trying to achieve here? That's still to this day. I'm 32 years old, and I still think, what is Cunningham?
What do we do? I mean, that makes sense. I see Graham technique, and I'm like, oh, okay. You sort of understand. You're like Graham. It's the contractions.
Yeah,
Um, and Horton, it's the tilts or the lateral T's. I'm going to use the right terminology. It's going to be very cool. Um, yeah.
that's they're they have names, they have purpose, they have order, sequence, progression, purpose.
Yeah.
And I find Cunningham a little bit
Just a bit
very
chaotic.
very modern. Yeah, not gonna lie.
Yeah, but without the fabric.
Without the fabric, yeah, very modern, less fabric. Yes.
This fabric. Um, Merce Cunningham ends up being, I don't know if you know, the modern teacher at School of American Ballet in its really, really early years. And John Cage would play the piano for class,
Oh, amazing.
which is it's one of those weird time in history.
Crossovers.
Yeah, imagine just being in class and you've just got someone who's going to be one of the world's most famous artists just playing, just,
Casually in class while you do
yeah,
tondus in
accompanying your tondus.
in parallel.
You're
Yes.
paralleled. I don't understand what I'm trying to do when I do a parallel tondu. I've done them in jazz classes before, and I'm like, I get what's happening with the tondu in first, but I want to know what the goal is of doing it in parallel.
You know what? It's we do them in Horton too. It's actually harder alignment wise to steady your body in parallel.
Okay.
So there's purpose behind it, but not always in parallel. We need both planes.
Yeah. I mean, I was about to say if you do everything turned out, it would be weird, but that's just ballet. That's just what that is.
That's right. That's spot on. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we also have in the cast of one of the shows Balanchine choreographed was Jose Limon.
Jose Limon, yes,
Limon?
yeah. Very. If I had one word to describe Limon, would be just quirky,
Just
but fun. Quirky but fun. That's for sure. And very challenging for your body coordination wise. I think I've done like two Limon classes in my life,
yeah,
and I was
and they were both hard.
hurts my brain so bad. But incredible experience. But Yeah, quirky, challenging for the brain and the body coordination
Yeah.
wise. Um, and even yeah, even the musicality is just as quirky as the movement. So I didn't really know much about Limon and what came first, and whether he moved to music or music moved to him.
He
So
he worked in musical theatre as a dancer for a time, and then I think 10 years after he does this show with Balanchine, he debuts he does his first big work um,
yeah.
later. But he started out as a chorus boy.
Wow, of all things,
I
amazing.
know. I mean, most of them did. A lot of them.
Yeah,
I mean, Jerome Robbins started out as a chorus boy as well. Um,
adore Jerome Robbins. Adore. Yeah,
his
obsessed.
work is amazing, and I'm so glad that I've learnt it from people who weren't him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's another one that has quite a signature to
Mm.
his work and how he goes about things. And you'll look at a choreography and be like, "That's Jerome Robin,"
Yeah, I love the sneaker ballets of
Yeah,
his.
very cool,
Yeah.
very cool.
And then the last person we meet in this next episode is Katherine Dunham.
Love her. Probably my after Horton, my second favorite.
The second favorite.
Yep, yep. I actually did a major work on her. My thesis, my final university thesis was on Katherine Dunham.
Wow. Okay, so you have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, I think the feminine energy and the power and that kind of yeah, sensuality to movement, but in a really powerful way. It was something that really resonated with me,
Yeah.
and just kind of her same kind of idea, like very experimental. And if you could do the work, she wanted you. Very much like Horton, they're quite. It wasn't about what color you were, what body you had. If you could do the work, we wanted you. And
Yeah.
that's something for me that's really quite significant with both of those pioneers. And had a brilliant Dunham teacher, very scary but brilliant Dunham teacher in at the Ailey School, Miss Joan Peters. She could be your grandma outside of the class. Beautiful woman, so lovely. Always had her lashes done, like lippy on, everything. She was fab. But when she was in class with that stick, you better just get it together because she the stick never stops. It always was pounding on the ground in time with the drums, and you had to work very very hard for her. But the the movement was really powerful, and you just had no choice. Just get through it. That's pretty much it. But
It,
yeah, beautiful,
it,
obsessed.
it is incredible how there's some dance teachers who you go, oh, their class is impossibly difficult. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly right. And I'm hoping she's still there teaching. I can't remember how old she was when I was there, but she was very strong, very short, petite. She would sit down and she would see everything. And if someone messed up, we would do an exercise, say on the right side.
Yeah.
If someone messed up, we would do that again and again on the right and again on the right and again on the right until someone didn't mess up. And then we would eventually get to the left side and no one wanted to mess up. So we'd only do this one-sided thing on the left. So you would do it 5 times on the right and once on the left until we learnt our lesson. But the strength that it builds and that kind of the word to describe Katherine Dunham and Dunham technique is fierce.
Yeah.
Like it makes you a fierce mover and a fearless mover.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to throw yourself into the dynamic of her movements, which are same kind of thing. Lots of isolations, kind of movement from the pelvic, like that pelvic movement is like the main focus, and then all the strength and holds in second, and like it's just amazing. And you work same thing, parallel, turned out, upside down, inside out. It's like one of those things. Yeah. But incredible technique, incredible human being. I wish she was still here.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think is really incredible about her is that when she started dancing for for African Americans, it was like you could do tap, you can tap, tap exists, and she was like,
Yeah,
"Well, I'm not a tap dancer, so I guess I'm just gonna have to invent a genre for me to do."
yeah.
Like
Show 'em
that's
how.
so determined to go.
Yeah,
Well, no, I'm gonna do the kind of work I want to do,
yeah,
and that she trained people during rehearsals because there weren't dancers who could do her stuff when she started.
that's right. It was just her
It was
doing her
just
thing.
her.
But yeah, definitely a little bit more powerful than Isadora, I would say. A little bit.
You don't get a
Yeah,
lot of like 2 and 3 year olds accidentally doing Dunham.
no, that's correct. Probably wouldn't be the first technique that you would learn either.
No.
Yeah, but beautiful and musicality, like all of that stuff. I mean, I will dance to drums every single day if I could. It just yeah, it's amazing. That's the other thing. I have to say, going back to your first query about the difference between training here and in the States,
Yeah.
is also that presence of live music in your classes and
Yeah.
live music while you're training. It's like I know that exists in ballet classes here, maybe in full time and things like that. But every day I had the honor of dancing to live musicians. So that's something that I wish, like people would just go for a little bit more here, or just
Yeah.
like just invite artists to collaborate with schools and with dancers and things
Yeah.
like that. It would be something that I would love to see transform and be a part of that transformation too.
Yeah. I mean, that does sound really cool. I've yet to take a class actually with any live music because the ballet classes that have it tend to be a couple of levels above me. Um, but yeah, that does sound really, really incredible. And
Yeah,
whenever I hear, you watch clips of contemporary or modern dance classes and you hear the drums and it's so cool. It's so
yeah,
cool.
very cool, very very cool.
So what kind of performance work do you do?
Mostly freelance, and I have to say, when I got back to Australia, I kind of shifted into the commercial world a little bit more because same thing, because of the volume of work and
Because it exists
uh,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, where do I? Wow, there's no modern dance. There's no modern dance company. What am I going to do? Where do I go aside from Sydney Dance Company? I didn't know anything or anyone.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I had an agent for a little while, and then that wasn't, I didn't need an agent. People were starting to discover who I was. Who was this random girl that's come back from the States? Who was she? So yeah, it kind of stemmed into that commercial world of performance, which was, it was stimulating at the time. It was enough for me to still like, being on stage is a dancer's joy. So I was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is my work. I get to do this full time, So I kind of just took it head on. And then in I would say the last 2 to 3 years, I was like, wow, I'm really missing this. I'm missing like company life and
Yeah.
spending that much time with a choreographer to develop a piece and work in a full length show and things like that. So I kind of started just working again independently with artists that had some projects going on, and then also I was like, this Horton stuff needs to be out here a little bit more. So I started teaching at NAISDA Dance College, which is an Indigenous college on the Central Coast.
Yeah.
And then that kind of stemmed into the Bangarra Dance Theatre. So I was able to kind of teach that as well and still have that nice kind of company feeling, even if I
Yeah.
wasn't performing, just at least teaching there. And I work a lot with Laredo Malcolm. I've danced with the Laredo La Crater Company a couple of times and things like that. So just really kind of trying to find that balance between having that performance life that I love but also doing it's my duty to share this with the world or with Australian dancers. It's my duty, or I feel that's my gift, and I've been given that duty to do so. So
I mean,
yeah, that's where
that's
I am at the moment.
yeah. So you are the founder of Horton Technique Australia.
Yeah,
It's your
yeah,
baby. How
that's
did that happen?
COVID. Yeah,
That's how the
COVID happened.
podcast happened as well.
Yeah, COVID. That first knock, and I was like, and I was still teaching my kids online, like the pre-professionals, and I was like, you know what, I'll just do some open class. I was taking class with one of my mentors in San Francisco. His name is Victor Talledos from Lions Dance Theatre, and I was like, I think I need to start some classes for Aussie on an Aussie time as well. So yeah, I just started to open up the Zoom world, and then people were like, okay, cool, I want to learn some more. And people didn't know really what Horton was, and
I mean,
there's
you were
probably
my first introduction to it.
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people that even people that have never danced before were joining my Zoom classes, and that kind of built up. And I was like, okay, I need to get myself a page, get myself a website. And I'm not great with all this social stuff. It's not really my thing, but um, I'll get there one day. But for me, it's more that the work speaks for itself, and just being able to share that little kind of Chinese whisper kind of happened, and people started to come to the classes really consistently.
Yeah.
And then this most recent lockdown, I literally just the first week we were locked up, I was like, I'm putting classes straight away because I know that people are locked in their house, and dance is a savior for many people, and yeah, just giving them that access still. So, and even my students would join outside of their classes that they had to do. They would
Yeah.
still they just want to
Extra
dance.
class. Bonus
Yeah,
class.
dancers don't have holidays. You know what I'm saying?
No, no. Take a day off
So,
and I'm like, my body feels weird. I need to
yeah,
do this again.
yeah, literally. So yeah, that's kind of my baby. It's just stemmed from pretty much from COVID, and just being like just creating something that's particularly to give Australian dancers access to this, because I can probably count on one hand how many people I know that teach the technique here, maybe less than one hand. I don't know
Yeah.
that teach the
One
technique
hand
here.
after a tragic accident kind of
Yeah,
thing.
possibly. And also because you know, I've been able to continue my professional development since the Ailey School. This is
Yeah.
my 12th, maybe 13th year studying the Horton technique. It is
Yeah.
still a challenge for me. There's still things I don't know, but I've had access to learning the West Coast way and the East Coast way. So everyone kind of associates the Horton technique just with the Ailey School, but that's not the case. So um, just like making people aware of that, and just because someone's studied at the Ailey School doesn't mean they know everything else about Horton or Limon or Graham or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's just keeping that open mind that every teacher, every experience has been different, and um, each one is as valid. And I really love just continuing my professional development, and with Victor and another beautiful teacher called Alvin from the University of California. So kind of keeping those affiliations open and giving Aussie dancers access to that is been a really big priority, and where Horton Technique kind of came from.
That's
So
that's really, really cool.
yeah, so we'll just keep going until my body says no. We'll
Feels like
lateral
no more.
shifts. I will probably retire a little bit earlier than Martha.
Yeah, so like 68.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
It is insane to me how long some dancers in the past worked.
Yeah.
I believe Marie Taglioni danced into her 50s,
Or 50s, yeah. Yeah.
which is a long time.
A long time. Sylvie, like, come on. They just, if it's their life, that's what they do, you know.
Yeah,
Or they'll always have some kind of connection to dance, even when they retire. So,
yeah. There's very
yeah.
few of these people who are like, yeah, I quit and then I never did it again. Like,
No,
they're
I
like,
don't
I
know.
quit and I started a studio and these are my prodigies.
And they are doing all the work for me now.
I sit
Yeah,
here and I command people.
yeah, pretty much. I'll do that when I'm about 80, I think. Yeah.
One day you too can be the the grandmother slash scariest teacher you've ever
Yeah.
seen. Lashes
Please.
and lipstick and
Yeah.
stick pounding on the ground.
Yep. I think that's. I just had a very good visual. I think that could be me by
Yeah, I
then.
support it. I'm on board.
But also, you have to remember that back then there was kind of a different way that company like contracts, all these contracts and
Yeah.
short-lived things. That's not how people worked back then. They were in companies for years and years and years. I think my Graham teacher was in the London Contemporary Dance Theatre for like 30 plus years, you know, and
Yeah, that's
yeah.
significant.
So it's really different now. Everything is faster, shorter, you know, it's just a different era now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think I asked all my questions.
Amazing. That's amazing. Great.
Where is the best way to blah, blah, blah. Where's the best place for people to find you? If they want to take class, or if they want to, if they are starting a contemporary dance company. I forgot how to talk, which is worrying given that what I do is talk.
Yeah, a little
Someone's
bit.
starting a contemporary dance company and like needs someone. How do they get in touch with you?
They can find me on socials. Even I promise I'll check them. I'm pretty good. I have
She did
Horton
check.
Technique
I
on social on Instagram. I've got Horton Technique Australia or AU, and I've got my personal Instagram, Chi Chanel 13. If they want to hop onto there, and also if they just jump onto the website hortontechniqueaustralia.com, they can send me a little inquiry, or and then I love chatting on the phone or Zoom or anything, or yeah, they can just shout out. I'm always open to helping people get started or do classes or guest teach or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Awesome, amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
my pleasure. So lovely to meet you.